Kia ora and welcome to Recycling Week's Rethink Sessions, quick bite sessions for identifying opportunities to waste less. As is a podcast style, feel free to just listen in or you can watch the conversations unfold. I'm Inga, the Sustainability Manager here at Reclaim, the creators of New Zealand's Recycling Week, the largest nationwide campaign helping individuals and organisations just like you take simple, meaningful steps toward reducing waste. It's our final session for the week, Reflection Friday, where we will reflect back on our learnings and bust some waste minimisation myths. To help us with this session, we're joined by New Zealand's waste minimisation guru and Reclaim's National Operations Manager, Bruce Ireland. So my first question for you is around plastics and recycling sent abroad. Is it true that all plastics and recyclables just get sent to China and Southeast Asia and are burned, or what actually happens to these?
Well, very little plastic from this part of the world goes to China for recycling because they had a clamp down on receiving rubbish from the rest of the world some years ago. And they put a ban in. You've got to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to get plastic into China, which is a good thing for them. They've now listed their own domestic rates by a huge amount. I have no idea what the numbers are, but it's massive because they have a large population and a growing middle class and a growing consumer class. So they've got all their own plastics to deal with. And if they need any more, then you can export some there, but there's a bunch of hoops. So most of the people that had plastic plants in China set up plants in Malaysia and Indonesia. So most of our plastics go to Malaysia, though not all. When people say it goes there to get burnt or rubbish, why would you pay for the collection of something, bale it, the processes we go through to deal with it, the cost we incur right here to get it into a container? Someone's got to pay for that, and we don't get any government subsidies, so someone's paying for that. And then send it across the world to burn it. Where's the economic sense in that? And that's bloody expensive fuel.
Burning money, in a way.
So, look, if you see somebody doing that, then I can assure you they didn't buy it from us because they couldn't afford to burn our recycling. But no, I can't imagine it gets burnt. Now, if there is pictures of people burning plastic, it's the contaminants. If you buy from us a container load of PET and we just bale up all this detritus we pick up from the curbside and stick it all together in a container, you pluck out the things that are worth money, you're going to be left with a bunch of plastics that unfortunately people put in their recycling that aren't worth anything to anybody. Now that might get burned, but that's the reason that we sort and sell a particular product. And the customers don't want to buy that other stuff from us. They want to buy PET, HDPE, polypropylene, whatever it is they're buying. That's what they want. And we have a very low tolerance for contamination in what we sell. So if people are burning it, it's because they're burning the stuff they can't use, which they shouldn't have in the first place.
Nice. Sum it up. My second question then is on food waste. So separating food waste. Does it actually make a difference, separating it out, or is it just a pointless extra step and the food waste bins that got rolled out are kind of ultimately a waste?
Well, there's a huge plant in Reparoa based around Auckland's food waste collections. If it's a waste, it's a huge multi-million-dollar waste. Because there's an eco-gas plant that was built purely to handle Auckland's domestic food waste collections. They take it down there, they sort out the contaminants, which once again, there shouldn't be any, but humans being humans, there's always a little bit of stuff that shouldn't be in there. People that don't care, people think, you'll be right, it goes to rubbish anyway. But anyway, they take it down there, they sort it, they put it into these big tanks to digest. They remove the gases, which they use to heat. I think they run water through it for cooling. They use gases to generate electricity. They run water through the cooling system. That water then gets piped across to a big Turners and Growers glass house facility, and they use it to heat the glass house, and that helps cool it. Then it goes through a cooling system and back through the cycle. So the heat from the digestion is used. Then they've got the residue liquid fertilizer and solid compost from what's left over after they've extracted the methane gas, the biogases, which they use for the electricity. There's a trucking company right across the road, a fertilizer spreading company, and they use liquid fertilizer on farms throughout the South Waikato, because they're based Reparoa between Taupo and Rotorua. And then they use the solids as fertilizer and compost as well. So what were you going to do with your food waste if that didn't happen to it?
Yeah.
If you don't have a home compost, or it's a nice circular thing. So you make your own decisions whether you think that's a waste.
Yeah. And the fact that that's then going to Turners and Growers, it's being used to grow food, which we then eat, which is another reason why we don't want to contaminate our food waste.
Yes. Very good
we'll
reason.
eat it. for metals, food waste and glass then ending up in landfills, as you say, some people might think, oh, it's all going to rubbish anyway. Can those recyclables, metals, food waste, glass or other materials actually break down in landfill? Or what really happens when we put these in our landfill when they could have been recycled?
Well, glass never breaks down per se. Glass starts as sand, silica sand, and a bit of potash, quite a simplistic raw materials. And if you break it into lots of tiny pieces, which is breaking down because there's no real chemical change happens, we just melt the glass and then shape it into a bottle or jar. So if you break it back, as long as you rounded the edges, it's sand, you can take the labels and the glue off, you can throw it in the ocean. I don't recommend this because people will cut their feet, but give it a period of years and it'll be rounded back down to another particle of sand where it came from. But that would mean dredging that sand, shipping that sand, putting it in the kiln and making new glass. Whereas you could take your bottle to a recycling company and it'll go straight to the glass beneficiation plant and into the glass furnace and be turned back into a bottle without the need of dredging and transporting sand. So better not to put in a landfill. As far as tin cans go, if you leave a tin can on the side of the road or in your backyard, preferably not public road, put it in your own backyard and see what happens to it. It takes years and years and years to rust, to oxidize, to turn into rust, and then to finally fall apart. And that's out in the environment. And you put that into a landfill where it's got limited airflow. It's a sealed unit, so they seal the bottom of the landfill so the leachate can't enter the groundwater, etc. And they seal the top of the landfill so rodents and things don't get into it. And then material in the middle slowly breaks down where they aerate it. So they put tubes in now. They never used to, but they put tubes and stuff in now to get air through the landfill. And then they bring the gas out from the pockets when they capture it or where it might form. But I would still imagine that you're probably adding, 4 times 10, I just made those numbers up, 4 to 10 times what it would take for a can to break down if it was in your backyard. And considering the can in New Zealand recycling, most of the cans that go out to waste in New Zealand end up at Pacific Steel as reinforcing steel for concrete. So once again, if you don't make it out of recycled, you're going to dig up iron, sand, put it through a steel mill, run it through wire, blah, 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 or import the stuff, all that sort of thing. Whereas if you put your tin can in the right place, it'll end up back in the floor of your next house. And surely having to dig up the natural resources is more expensive than just recycling it. Indeed. And also a landfill, if it's in a landfill, so what if it breaks down in a landfill? What good is that to anybody? It's in a landfill. We can't recover it from landfill. You look at the landfills, I'm in my 60s, look at the landfills of my childhood, the ones that existed when I was a kid that are covered over. They're still just covered over mounds of dirt. We've done nothing with them. Meola Road we've turned into a playing field, set in fields, but even that's, I've played footy there and had a graze. It took months to heal from something that no doubt on the ground. And that landfill's been closed since I was a wee kid, so, So yes, you can't do a lot with a landfill. It takes a very long time before you can use it again. And though the tin can may have broken down, what else is broken down in that soil? Exactly. Yeah. Would you want to grow your broccoli there? Breaking down isn't the same as composting or... No. Yeah. So it's not going to turn into dirt necessarily. It's going to turn into maybe microplastics or chemical, whatever happens to oxidize metal. Rust particles. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really want to stand in rust. Get that in an open wound. Ugh. Your tetanus shots up. Yeah, exactly. Don't need more cases of that. So soft plastics then, are they really doomed to sit in landfills forever or can they be recycled into something more useful maybe? I've said this before and I've always hoped that would happen in my lifetime. I thought of my children that would be doing it, and maybe my grandchildren, maybe even another generation after that. But landfills are a resource dump for the future. So if there are things that we don't know what to do with, we don't have a solution for them right now, then landfills aren't a bad place. As long as the landfill's controlled, fully leachate controlled, nothing enters the environment, they capture the gases from it, use all those for good purposes, blah, blah, then a landfill that doesn't have any air flowing through it, so it's a closed cell, everything in that landfill is going to be in there in 100 years' time or whatever the case may be. And when we have a value or a use for that product, we could, in fact, and we've banned mining of natural resources, then we'll have to start looking at those for replacements because every piece of plastic every piece of plastic's got some oil trapped into it because that's where it came from. Yeah. So, currently the cost of making oil out of PET, I can't remember the figures now, but some years ago to make a litre of diesel out of PET was going to cost you something like $8.30 New Zealand without the taxes on the diesel. Yeah, so
Oosh.
it's very expensive diesel at the time when we were paying 96 cents or something a litre. So it's not cheap fuel. But if we no longer extract oil, or we've extracted all the cheap oil and oil's now more expensive to extract, then taking oil from PET or other forms of plastic might well be a solution. There's going to be a lot of that in our landfills, unfortunately, because it didn't get recycled. Or there's a lot of the other plastics, not PET, the soft plastics and the dodgy plastics and the blended plastics, which aren't viable to recycle currently, which are in our landfills, which could be a resource for the future. They don't break down. They go into particles too small to see with the naked eye. That's what happens when we call it, what do they call it, for biodegradable plastics. My definition of biodegrade is to return to the natural components from which it was formed. It's not the definition on plastic packaging when it says biodegradable. It's going to break down in the environment until you can't see it anymore.
It's biodegraded in our eyes.
It's still there. In fact, it's now a new problem. Microplastics in the food chain, blah, blah, blah.
Our brains, apparently.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So soft plastics are a problem in the fact that we have solutions for them, making them into fence posts, making them into wallboards, making them into roading, into concrete, all sorts of things they can put them into. But we haven't actually recycled it. We've just repurposed it briefly. And then when that piece of product reaches its end of life, it's now even harder to recover because it's now blended with so many other things. The real solution is to not make the stuff that doesn't have an end of life solution in the first place. So now it's difficult. Technology, the technology to keep your chips fresh, etc., is difficult, and it's not there yet. But necessity is the mother of invention. So we just said, if you don't have a home for the packaging you're producing, if you can't find a recycler that is going to recycle that, not just into one-offs, clever little items out of it, like TerraCycle do for large companies. If it doesn't have a true recycling home, you should be looking at making an alternative packaging. And if we all said that's going to stop in a year's time, see how fast they can come up with a solution.
Yeah, like with single-use plastic bags. Banned it. People found a solution. I don't really see many people complaining anymore.
No. Hard to find little plastic bags for your bin liners, but it's a minor price. Just wash your bin.
Rinse your things before you can if it's your recycling bin anyway. It doesn't need a liner. Another controversial material then maybe is batteries. So we've seen a few battery fires from people disposing them in the bins. Is it still okay to just throw batteries in the bin, or is there a better way to dispose of them? And what happens if we were to just throw them in our general waste?
It's never really been a good idea. In Europe in the 90s, they had, I was in a small village in the Ponte Formazza, I think, in the top of Italy. And on that town hall, the village hall, if you like, there was a battery disposal box, which I thought was quite neat, just outside the door, the top of the stairs, to put your domestic alkaline and carbon zinc batteries. Would have all been alkaline then, I imagine. So we knew back then it wasn't a good idea because people wouldn't have gone to the effort to divert them from the waste of it if we all thought it was a good idea to put them in the waste. Batteries leach product. They're made from a bunch of stuff. None of it you want to drink, I'm sure. If you left 4 alkaline batteries in water for 6 months, you'd probably be unwise to drink the water. I don't know what it would do to you, to tell you the truth, but I certainly wouldn't want to drink it. Therefore, we don't want them in the environment. And we don't really want them in the landfill if there's an alternative. The problem batteries are nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, and they were the old rechargeable batteries before we discovered lithium batteries. But there's still a lot of them about in the marketplace, NIMH and NICD batteries, and they have valuable metals in them if we could extract them. It wasn't viable previously, but I believe it's getting viable now to extract those metals and to repurpose them. The problem with the rechargeable batteries is they often hold a charge when they're in waste stream, and if both ends touch and they short, then you've got a fire. And we've seen a number of rubbish truck and recycling truck fires caused by batteries. So, the proper place to dispose of them, and there is numerous battery outlets now. A number of companies, I can't name them all offhand, but most of the e-waste companies take batteries. I believe that Abilities, I think, have a battery collection service, as well as some other companies who do a battery collection service for you as well. You don't have to go to a landfill.
I'm not 100% sure if Abilities is currently
operating. No, yes. Yeah. And they've taken anything currently, but yes.
Hardware stores as well. I think, offer.
Yep. Some people have
drop-off, not
drop-offs.
collection,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Which shouldn't go to landfill, but and they are a valuable resource. Once again, the technology to recycle them is getting better in different parts of the world. We don't have it here in New Zealand yet, mainly because we probably don't have enough of them. Our population's not large enough to sustain that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean we can't gather them and export them. In the past, the world best practice, international best practice for disposing of carbon, zinc, and alkaline batteries. Now, carbon, zinc here is standard. Here's one I prepared earlier. Oh, no, that's a bad one. That's lithium. I don't have a normal alkaline, but your standard alkaline batteries are also, some of them are now carbon, zinc, which have a slightly longer life, slightly more expensive, supposedly. So the world's best practice, international best practice previously, was to encase them in 100 mils of cement and then put them in the landfill. Now, the reason for encasing them in the cement was so the leachate was contained. Now, you ran a landfill that was leachate controlled. Why would you be concerned about the leachate if it wasn't nasty?
Yep. Very good question.
So there is a bunch in New Zealand, 100 mils of cement inside old IBCs, the plastic international bulk container things. So they're in there containing all their own leach. And when we mine the landfills, we'll find those as well. Hopefully, we'll have an answer for them. But they're all nicely contained in 1 cubic meter package.
Wow, that must make them a lot heavier.
Very heavy.
Take up even more space in the landfill. Jeez. Yeah, and batteries, with the whole putting them in water and drinking that's a massive concern around, batteries are around like little kids, like them swallowing them.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're so hard to get out of the packaging half the time, especially the button batteries.
Yep.
So, no, we don't want that. We don't want that in our food waste either, because obviously don't want that leachate in our future tomatoes and veg. So then, maybe, who knows, maybe people put them in their recycling with the hopes that they get recycled. So on to wish cycling and contamination.
It is.
I
think most bins, but I think most bins are clearly marked what can go in. Now, if you don't fancy going on the web and investigating it, I'm sure if you just lift up your lid,
the lid on the inside,
there's a little thing on the inside that tells you what you're supposed to put in there. And if it doesn't say it can go in there, it doesn't mean, well, when we made this list, you couldn't put it in, but give it a crack, you never know what might happen. It tends to mean only put inside your bin what's on the list. And the websites, which are very easy to access now from most people's mobile phones, or from call the council otherwise if you need to. But if it doesn't tell you to put it in there, I would suggest that you don't.
It's not in there. If in doubt, throw it out. So,
properly, the proper receptacles.
Yes. So one of our Bin It to Win It questions, one of the common materials I've asked was jandals. So can throwing jandals and other items made of what we think should be recyclable materials in landfill be justified? You've kind of answered this. Or are they actually more complex to recycle in New Zealand than we think?
Well, this comes down to wish cycling with jandals like tyres. So what we call rubber these days, like if you ask people what a tyre for the car is made of, most people will say it's made of rubber. In fact, the rubber component's very, very small. So mostly made of composite plastics. There might be some pure rubber jandals. Probably not. They've probably most got, because you look at the consistency of some of them, they certainly don't feel like they're rubber anymore. So they've probably got other things in them. Once you blend any two polymers together, you've now changed it as far as recycling is concerned. We can recycle PET, no drama, clear PET, coloured PET. We can recycle HDP, number 2s. We can recycle number 5. Now, if you blend number 2 and number 1 together to make some sort of packaging item, we can't recycle that anymore because we can't separate it. So when you've got jandals made of mixed polymers, they're not going to be an easy recycle. So don't put them in your recycling bin, because I'm sure when you lift the lid, it's not on the label, jandals. So therefore, look, all plastics, technically speaking, all plastics can be recycled, but you've got to separate those plastics in the process somewhere. Huge expense, more than the product's worth. And to run a plant to recycle, say, jandals, you would need hundreds of thousands of tons a year of the same composite jandal, not 3 different composite jandals. The same composite jandal, hundreds of thousands of tons a year. And we don't look. We keep our jandals for a long time. We fix them with red bag tags when they pop through the bottom. So we're not going to throw hundreds of thousands of tons of jandals a year away. So it's never going to be a viable recycling process currently in New Zealand. There is other technologies on the horizon. Pyrolysis, burning without oxygen. It's a solution for some tyre processes around the world. From that, we get a carbon black, which is used in chemistry and manufacturing all over the world, so an easy to sell product. You get a distillate, a form of fuel, like a raw oil or diesel type product out of it, and you get a gas, which can be used to generate electricity, heat, water, all sorts of things. And then you get a slag at the end of it all from pyrolysis. Now, that slag will be a nasty hunk of stuff that, but made some use of the other stuff in the meantime. And pyrolysis is clean, supposedly, triple burn the air, blah, blah. But, as I've always said about incineration of waste, I've yet to find an incinerator operator who will put the output from his smokestack into his children's bedrooms.
Despite it being 3 times burned, they still don't want to.
So, if you're not prepared for your children to breathe it, why do you want the rest of us to?
And in the end, it will be their children breathing it as well, because they're the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that's the jandals. Then will be the same for other materials, as you said, that we wish cycle. We need a lot of exactly the same material to be able to recycle. Therefore, as we touched on, read what's allowed to go in your bin and only put that in it. Otherwise, you're essentially contaminating it, which can end up in landfill, which, as we talked about, landfill, they don't break down or biodegrade as we understand biodegrade. They biodegrade in the sense of it's breaking down into just small pieces. It's not turning back into dirt or...
No, you won't be able to grow vegetables in your broken down bits of jandal.
Might come out blue and purple and spotty. Well, that's all my questions. All myths busted. Wonderful. Thank you for giving us your time and your recycling expertise. And I look forward to everybody having learned something from this. I've definitely learned multiple things. I always learn something with you. So
good.
Yeah.
We're here to help.